Good morning, everybody. It's Christine Erickson here, and I was out for a walk this morning and thought of something kind of cool I wanted to share with you. I am on this trail right here. This is not where I started. I started in my neighborhood, and when I'm in my neighborhood, when I'm walking in my neighborhood, my view is a lot more limited. I can see maybe 50 to 100 feet in either direction. I live in this lovely neighborhood here, and there are curves and there are hills, and so my vision is a little bit limited. There are streets that I go down frequently. I kind of have my routine and the places that I typically go, and don't usually go on all of the streets in my neighborhood. And I was thinking of how this is kind of like our lives, and sometimes I think the emotions in our lives are like cars. They carry us away sometimes, and sometimes we feel like they're about to run us over. But there are other things in our experiences besides emotions, of course. It's not a perfect analogy, but we've got a lot of chipmunks in our neighborhood, and chipmunks are maybe like our thoughts. There are quite a few of them. They are very active. Sometimes they're a little bit prolific and maybe even problematic. And again, when I'm in the neighborhood, what I can see around me is pretty limited. And I can choose what I see. I can choose what I focus on. But when I come out of my neighborhood, when I follow this trail that leads up this hill and up this mountain, I can see the whole entire neighborhood, and even beyond that, I can see maybe 8 miles into the distance. I can see quite a bit further out than I can when I'm actually on the street in my neighborhood. And this is something that happens when we practice mindfulness. When we take a step away from our emotions, from our thoughts, from our very immediate experience, and take this observer stance, it completely changes our perspective on things. It reminds us that we have other options, we have other alternatives. It reminds us that we have other streets that we can go down. It also helps us see some of the patterns. Like, it reminds me that, I typically go down like these 2 or 3 streets in my neighborhood, and that's about it. But really, if I want to go from point A to point B, there are a multitude of options for me. So when we find ourselves stuck in habits, when we find ourselves stuck in old patterns or old stories, we can choose a different street to go down. We can choose to avoid an oncoming car, and we can choose what thoughts we focus on. And again, it's not a perfect analogy, but practicing mindfulness does help us to take that observer stance and kind of change our perspective of what's going on, of our experience, and also kind of show us some of our patterns and open us up to additional alternatives of choice and action, of thinking, of responding. So I just wanted to share that with you from up here on this hill this morning, and I hope this was maybe helpful to somebody.